Hello, Perfect Death here, and I figured I'd do another Ragnarok Online Mobile video. This one's more. I decided to do this one about stats for the Divine Avenger class. At one point, I did like an hour-long guide video for PvP builds, which I ended up breaking up and just doing a counterattack Halo video. And so I decided to just break up some of the other parts on it and just do separate recordings talking about them. And in this one, I'm going to do stats. And what kind of stats would you want? What kind of stats do you definitely need depending on what kind of build you're running? And how those would change your playstyle for whether it's PvE or PvP. So, to basically start with, for the most part, Divine Avengers max out their vitality, and main reason for that is many of their skills are actually based on vitality damage. So shield charge, for example, boosted by vitality. Shield chain it's secretly, it doesn't show it in the stats here, but it does get improved by vitality. Shield boomerang, vitality, and then of course shield objetics is based on shield boomerang damage. And then sacrifice deals damage based off of your percent HP. Your battle chant improves based on vitality. Earth drive deals damage based off of vitality. So there's quite a bit that you would improve for your stats based off of your vitality. But the only skill that you wouldn't really need that for is if you're doing an overbrand build, but that I'm not going to cover just because it's quite the wild ride of trying to balance out your gear, and it's not easy to build overbrand. So most Divine Avengers have just dropped trying to do that build. So vitality pretty much always gets maxed out. And then it comes down to, well, what do you do next? What do you do next with your stats? A usual minimum for dexterity would be a total of 120. And that would be if you want to be able to instant cast your Divine Protection skill, as that's a 4-second cast time. 120 dex means you will instant cast this skill. But outside of that, going higher on dex is mostly for your accuracy. Earth drive gets a 30% hit bonus. What are some of the other ones? I know shield charge is about a 40% hit bonus with the Acer runes. It goes up from 20% to 40%. And then you also have, I believe, shield press doesn't get any hit bonus. So if you want to hit people that are high flee with this skill, you're going to need a lot more hit. Now, inspiration does give you an extra 100 hit, making it sort of help. But, if you don't get much hit and you're trying to use Earth Drive or some of those other skills, you won't hit anything. But if you're running a sacrifice build, you don't really have to worry about hit, as sacrifice does not miss unless it's like a shield or something that will block damage. So in this case, I'm a little bit higher, but this is actually my PvE build. And I do have a PvP-ish build where, let's go around, do a comparison there. If I look at my stats, so with this one, I have still the 120 actually on this one. I think it's because, this is mostly a sacrifice build, right? So if I was to run this more for Earth Drive, then I'd definitely get higher dex. I have higher strength in this case. My strength is 164 here, whereas my strength over here is 140, right? So I do shift around some of my stat points. And the reason for the the higher strength is because in that PvP build I run some more stun chant stuff, and strength does improve your stun chance and duration. You can actually see what stats affect these status effects by going to Traveler's Notes. You use that, you go to the Adventure Guide, and then you go to the Abnormal Status Recovery. So these yellow ones mean you have resistances to them, and the red ones mean you increase the chances. The boot one reduces the chance of getting it, while the shield reduces the duration. And then there's the red ones for the opposite. So for stun, strength increases the chance and duration, whereas vitality reduces the chance and duration. Agility just reduces the chance. There's a bit of a theme where it's either vitality or an intelligence that does either of these, and then maybe you'll have some other stats that affect these others. So there is also a possible strategy if you are running poison, because there's a poison tail gacha. There's also I think it's the Chimera Star card that can inflict poison on people. Those, if you want to run that as a Divine Avenger because you're tankier and you can reflect poisons to people more often, then you would want to get some more luck just so that you can at least offset some of the resistances that people will have by their vitality or their intelligence, things like that. So like people being max vitality means that they will counteract somebody who has max strength. These stats will give about 80% bonus or reduction, and that caps out at about 400 stat points. So if you have 400 luck, then you're going to get an 80% boost. If you have 400 vitality, you're going to resist 80% of it, so then it would be a net neutral difference between the two. That's why you can find some weird ones like Stone Curse here. Petrified is what's listed as. It is resisted and inflicted by intelligence, and so if you're a player with very low intelligence, you're going to get Stone Cursed for very long periods of time. Or if you're trying to inflict sleep or fear, then you're going to want to have lots of dex to increase your chance and duration, right? So that's one of the things to also look at based on what you're going to decide as a stat. But for I would consider the status effect stuff more of a third tier decision for it. So vitality is usually your first tier that you get, and then your secondary stat. For me, I have intelligence on this one. For a lot of the Earth Drive builds, they tend to go for either agility or dex, depending on what they need as their secondary stat. If you go for agility as your secondary stat, that is to take advantage of a Aesir rune that gives you more defense for every point of agility that you have, whereas dex would be for extra hit rate. And so that just depends on what you want out of that. For intelligence, the main reason for getting that would be the Glorious Guardian passive skill that gives you a healing AoE that heals you mostly based on your intelligence, a little bit by your magic attack, and gives you a resistance to dark element if you're standing inside your holy ground. And as the agility also has some pretty good use if you are a sacrifice build, because that will give you your 480 attack speed a lot easier. And so if you are, a spear build, then if you could be running your spear quicken, which would give you a bunch of attack speed. So if you aren't looking to get, if you're looking to get your agility high enough for 480 attack speed, then that's what you would tailor that to. And that can vary based off of how many bonus agility points you get, or whether or not you are using your agility B food or A food, or if you have Spear Quicken, that'll determine what your agility would be. Or if you're going for it for the defense bonus for Earth Drive damage, then you would probably just invest a bunch into it. And again, I've seen some often sacrifice their intelligence for either, like I say, for the agility or the dexterity. If you're going for stun, then strength. If you're going for poison, then luck. And that's pretty much it for most of the status effect about why you would pick these different stats. There are some builds where you can try to get your flee up higher so that you can dodge more. That was more of something that people aimed for when they were trying to deal with stellar hunters, as you could get your crit defense up really high and your crit resistance, right? This would increase based off of your luck as well. We also have a fearless skill that increases our crit res, and so that prevents you from getting crit. And then if you have high flee, you could then dodge a skill like the normal auto attacks, and that would then prevent the stellar hunters from getting their SP damage through, that bypasses all of your resistances and deals damage based off of their max SP. So there is that as well for luck, but again, stellar hunters aren't quite as bad as they used to be because you can now resist it through or refined defense. So it's not quite as common as it used to be in terms of how much damage it does, but it can still be a very useful stat to look at getting depending on your build and what you want done. And I've generally seen for Earth Drive builds, people tend to go really high on their vitality. I don't have nearly as much enchants or gears cards to really pump the vitality up to get to that 400. So, because once you hit the 159, getting higher than that is basically just about your stat bonuses. As for my character here, I don't really run a lot of the vitality boosting gears. I also don't have the Eclipse Star card, which would really give you a lot of extra vitality. And if you are looking to, again, do your various builds, and that just determines what you do for equipment on that end. So for stats, they can definitely vary, whether you're going, your main vitality, and then secondary for agility or int or dex, and then third for either strength or luck. That's often how I've seen players distribute their builds. So I'll leave it there. Take care.